25th, 2025 meeting, Planning Commission to order. First item on the agenda is the roll call. Would you call the roll, please, Ms. Rambo?
Jade Castile.
Here.
Jim Jackson.
Here.
Pete McGorry.
Here.
David Miller.
Here.
Steve Pajali.
Here.
Connor Whalen.
Here.
Mike Zuloff.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the minutes from the May 28th, 2025 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes? And if so,
Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval.
it's been moved. Is there a second?
Go ahead, Jim can do it. I'll second it.
Moved and seconded by Mr. Jackson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Okay, our next item is a public hearing on 603 Columbus Ave, and I think how we will handle this is the staff will give a report on this application, and then we'll move to the public hearing portion where I will swear in everybody that wants to speak, and then you can come up to the podium. I'll ask those for or those against. You can come up to the podium and speak. Then we'll return to the table and talk amongst the table and make a decision. So with that said, Ms. Blair, are you going to give the report?
Yes, thank you. So this is an adjudication hearing for an application received by Fike Architecture on behalf of 603 Columbus LLC for property at 603 Columbus Avenue for a conditional use permit to establish a public facilities land use on a property zoned local business. The map on the left shows the zoning of the primary parcel, and on the right, you can see an outline of the primary parcel. They also own a vacant lot that's connected to this, which I'll show here in a minute. This is the picture on the northern corner of the property. So that top photo, you can see the condition of what the front facade facing Columbus Avenue looks like. And on the bottom photo is the condition of a previously used drive-through when it was built for a bank. That's on Madison Street. It was originally constructed for a bank use, and it has been used for a bank and small offices. Here we're looking at the Madison Street elevations. You can see that the original building is a two-story building facing Columbus Avenue, and then the single-story building facing Madison Street. Most recent use there, those were built as small offices, but they were used as transient rental. That received a conditional use permit in 2022 for 3 units facing Madison Street. The primary vehicle entrance to the site is adjacent to a single-family residential home on Columbus Avenue. You can see that here. The proposed use is defined within the category of welfare uses. So if you hear that term, it just is the definition in our public facilities district. That includes hospitals, mental and special hospitals, and institutional living. That's defined in 1123.04 of the zoning code. The proposed land use is housing and office space for Recovery Institute of Ohio Substance Abuse Rehabilitation Program, providing housing, limited on-site treatment, 24-hour staffing, and transportation compliance. They propose to operate this in conjunction with an existing treatment facility where primary detox and the main amount of treatment for their clients takes place. The proposed use is to house 20 to 25 individuals on site plus 4 to 6 staff members at all times. This is intermediate housing after an initial detox periods, and the stays would range from 2 weeks to 6 weeks in the property. The proposed services to take place on the site include individual therapy and limited group therapy sessions for only the occupants, so they're not expecting any additional clients to come to the site for therapy. The proposed building configuration is 16 bedrooms arranged in 2 5-bedroom units and 3 2-bedroom units, and we have those floor plans coming up. Also 6 office spaces, 1 conference room, a large gathering room, restrooms, laundry, and storage. And if you're interested in the square footages of any of those, they are in the staff report. So here you can see on the proposed site plan that was sent to us, both the parcels are outlined in red. So the property spans from Columbus Avenue to Jackson Street. And the building, the primary building is outlined in yellow. So the dark gray that you see, that roof is the two-story. The light gray are the offices that were transformed into rental units. And then the medium gray that's not outlined is just that drive-through space. The applicant did note future intentions to install a basketball court or picnic benches, but no drawing or specific design intent was provided for the outdoor recreation. This is the set of floor plans facing Madison Street. So the top of this page would be Madison Street. So you're seeing 3 units, all around 900 square feet, and a shared laundry area. The bottom of the page would be where the parking area is internal to the site. So each of those units has 2 bedrooms. And those are already complete. The work proposed would be in the main building, that 2-story building. This is the first floor plan. So the top outlined in orange would be a 5-bedroom unit. The rest of that floor is a large gathering room, 2 offices, additional restrooms, and storage. The second floor plan outlined here is the second 5-bedroom unit, and then also a conference room and 4 offices in the second floor. They also supplied additional information. Staff sent them about as many questions as we could think of that you might have for this conversation. They mentioned that their staff is credentialed and have various certifications such as therapy and nursing, that their clientele is voluntary. They have private insurance, so it's not a public insurance or court-ordered, that they conduct background checks on clientele, so the occupants would have been gone through background checks. They also mentioned there would be site security, including cameras. There would be limited access. The primary doors would be used only interior to the site, not the Columbus Avenue, Madison Street, and that mostly staff would have the door access codes, and that there would be limited visitation on the site, and there are specific terms when clientele are permitted off-site, so they would primarily remain on-site. Conditional uses, when we get a conditional use permit, we evaluate them with specific standards based on the zoning district. In this case, we've used both the residential district and the business district standards to take a look at this case because it's zoned business, but that local business zoning points to the residential standards for the conditional use being eligible in this case. So that's why we use them both, and I'm going to walk through each of those. So for residential standards, residential districts, there are 3 standards of evaluation of a conditional use. We'll go through each one. First is that the proposed use is properly located in relation to any adopted land use plan or major thoroughfare plan, secondary local streets, and pedestrian circulation in the surrounding area. In this case, the comprehensive plan emphasizes preservation of historic housing and stabilization of neighborhoods. The site is located in the central neighborhood, which calls for walkable, intact neighborhoods and preservation of historic housing stock. The surrounding area is a mix of historic single-family homes and small businesses. Generally, they're low traffic and intermittently occupied, such as churches, the funeral home. There is one place of assembly that is a food and alcohol serving establishment across the street, and down the block there's another venue that is an assembly place as well. The pedestrian circulation existing is a mixture of residents and business guests, including neighborhood students walking to and from the 3 schools in the area. The second conditional use standard that we looked at in the residential district is that the proposed use, when located on a residential street, is to generate a minimum of vehicular traffic through the residential neighborhood. In this case, it is not expected to generate a large amount of vehicular traffic. The clients do not have their own vehicles. They will be bused to and from the site for other services, so it's not expected to create an outsized amount of traffic. The third standard for residential district is that the location, design, and operation will not discourage the appropriate development or impair the value of the surrounding residential district. In this case, the transient nature of the occupants with 2-week to 6-week stays is a consideration from the perspective of neighborhood stabilization. The previous office use as built was quiet during the evenings and weekends as opposed to the proposed use with the occupants confined to the property in the evenings. We have heard a number of residents' concerns throughout, once we got this application, that the proposed use would destabilize the neighborhood and impair the value of the residential properties. So now we're moving on to the conditional use standards for the business, commercial, and manufacturing districts. There are 6 standards within this that asks to evaluate cases. The first is that the proposed use is necessary to serve community needs in existing similar facilities located in a more remote district in which the use is permitted by right or inadequate. In staff analysis, it just states that a more remote district would be more appropriate for the proposed use due to its location's presence within a neighborhood, the proximity to schools, and proximity to alcohol selling establishments. The second is that the proposed use is not closer than appropriate in the particular situation to schools, churches, and other places of assembly. And on the Jackson Street side of the parcel, the Sandusky Digital Learning Center is directly across the street. The property, including that, is within 300 feet of another school, a church, and 5 places of assembly. And if you expand that to a 500-foot radius, it adds another school and 1 church and another place of assembly. The third one is that the size, intensity, and site plan of the proposed use shall be such that an operation will not be objectionable to nearby dwellings by reason of noise, smoke, dust, odors, fumes, vibrations, or glare that is more than normal or as permitted by the performance standards of the district. We do expect evening and overnight noise that could be a concern due to the concentration of clientele and staff. The occupants are generally confined to the facility in the evening, early morning, and overnight hours. Item D is that the proposed use will form a harmonious part of the business, commercial, or manufacturing district, taking into account, among others, convenience of access and relationship of one use to another. Again, this is immediately surrounded by single-family residential uses within 1 and 2 blocks of existing schools, churches, and places of assembly. The concern is it would be inharmonious with long-term residential uses, especially considering the relative lack of setbacks between the buildings in the neighborhood. If you look at the welfare category in the public facilities district, if it were to be built brand new, it asks for 200 feet setbacks between land uses. And here, in this case, we have about 10 feet in between the buildings. E is that the proposed use should be permitted in the next least restrictive district because of its limited nature, modern devices, equipment, or improvements. It is eligible to be, the public facilities use, including welfare uses, are permitted in residential districts if they get a conditional use permit, and staff is not aware of modern improvements or devices that would make the proposed use more compatible in this district than any other. Finally, the final standard is that the hours of operation and concentration of vehicles in connection with the proposed use will not be more hazardous or dangerous than the normal traffic of the district. And again, this is not expected to create a concentration of vehicles or traffic. Other considerations and information that were mentioned in the staff report include the building code classification of this would be an institutional group, so it doesn't have the same kind of size requirements or quality of living requirements as like an apartment use, for example. So the unit configurations as proposed, those measurements would not meet our residential multifamily standards, including the bedroom sizes. They're not required to meet that. It's just note we're trying to evaluate this from as many factors as we could take a look at. New construction, as I mentioned, welfare uses in a public facilities district would require 200-foot side and rear yard setbacks. There's also concerns about the administrative constraint to monitoring safeguards if approved, such as the background checks, the qualifications of the staff. We don't typically are not monitoring that sort of land use in the city. So in summary, the staff analysis points to concerns that the proposed land use may not be harmonious with surrounding land uses. It has the potential to destabilize the neighborhood due to the concentration of individuals on the site and the frequent turnover of occupants, concern that it could be closer than appropriate to local schools, and that it may discourage development considered more appropriate to the area according to the comprehensive plan. And for that reason, the staff recommend that the Planning Commission consider a denial of the conditional use permit request.
Thank you, Ms. Blair. So we'll move into the public hearing, and I'll have to swear in anybody that plans on coming up to talk during the public hearing. So I'll do that as a group, and those that are planning on coming up and talking, please raise your right hand. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God? All right. So we'll take those that are in favor of the proposal first, and I would ask that you come up to the podium and state your name and your address for the record. And I was considering putting a time limit on it, but if you can keep your comments as brief as possible, I'd appreciate that. So those in favor of speaking in favor of this proposal, please come to the podium.
My name is Jacob Heister. Would you need my address?
Yes.
When I'm here, it's 934 Washington.
Okay.
All right, thank you for allowing us to be here. So I went through just overlooking that. A lot of those questions that were asked were definitive questions. This building is not going to be a treatment facility. It's not going to have groups and run like we have a facility that we've been operating since 2018 at 1019 Pierce Street. And that's where the treatment is held. With those questions, it was like, will you ever do this? And when COVID happened, we had to change a lot of things. Like people would get sick and we would have to keep them there, and then we would have to do groups there. So I didn't want to say no as a definitive, and then I come here and then a week later you'd say, oh, you said you weren't going to do this. That's not the intent. So we've been here for 7 years. We have a residential component. It's in Perkins Township. We've been there since 2018, and I don't even think the neighbors know what we do. We've never had a problem with them. We've never had the police call on us. We never had any complaints. The police have been there 2 times. One was because we called them. We saw someone breaking into a neighbor's house, and another time was because a toddler wandered in the backyard. We know what the neighborhood and the community views us as. So we have to go above and beyond to keep the landscaping nice, the upkeep. We try to be good neighbors and try to help everyone out. The other thing that everyone brings up is property values. Like, everyone is concerned about that. Every one of these I've ever gone to, and I have yet to see that happen. On Perkins, we have those first 3 houses right past Goofy Golf in a row. And I can tell you from 2018 to now, those houses and the ones surrounding are worth significantly more than when we bought them. So it's not that we have a negative effect on that. As far as the safety, we do a screening process. We allow or do not allow any sexual offenders, any violent criminals. It's a private facility. It is not a Medicaid facility. That means the clientele is a little bit different. These are people who want to be there. These are people who messed up and need a second chance. I'm sure every one of you know someone in your family or friends or loved one who has suffered from alcoholism or addiction. And just because they may have gotten in trouble at 17, 18 years old, and they could be considered a felon, or they've been arrested and been convicted of something, shouldn't ruin their whole life. Like, everyone deserves second chances. And, that's what we're trying to do. We're helping the community. We have a ton of staff from the community. We take the clients, like those clients who would live at that house, like we take them out to mini golf. We take them to Cedar Point. It's not like it's an institution where they're not allowed to leave. It's that they're there, they don't have their cars, they're supervised, they're monitored. We rarely have problems of any sort. And if they do, the person on site puts them in a vehicle and takes them to the office, where that is where everything happens. It's not like a free-for-all, and it's also not a prison. These are people who want to be there, and if they want to leave, we help them leave. But we just help them see that they have a second chance at life and they can do, better things. So, I don't know, thank you for your time, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Any,
Wait, are we able to ask him questions?
You gotta ask him questions.
I do, I have a question.
Okay.
I think we
Are we
just want to hear
here?
what they have to
Okay.
say during the
Oh,
hearing,
okay.
right?
I can come back.
Whatever the process is,
That's, and maybe we can call you up if we have a
Okay.
question.
fair enough.
Thank you.
Anyone else in favor of this proposal?
Good afternoon. I'm John Pike, business address 224 East Water, personally 629 Columbus Avenue. First, I'd like to give a quick history of Recovery Institute in Sandusky. In 2018, they purchased their property at 1019 Pierce Street. It was a former doctor's office. They opened their business office in this location. In September 2019, they purchased 3 homes in Perkins Township that Jacob talked about to use as their drug rehab residences. In December 22, I submitted a site plan to the city of Sandusky, the planning department, for their review. The request was for an addition to the rear of 1019 Pierce Street for a 7,900 square foot, 16-bed, 24-hour supervised drug rehab facility. In January 23, the planning department emailed me that there were no zoning issues and no parking issues for our proposed project. A building permit was issued per the Ohio Building Code under the Occoquan Chapter R4 residential use, specifically for alcohol and drug center. The construction was completed, certificate of occupancy was issued in April 24. I'll just give you, this is a section out of the building code that defines what residential use is. A quick history of the 603 Columbus Avenue. It was originally built in 1955. People's Savings was the bank on the corner. In the area to the west was Dr. Lester and Watson Parker's office, Dr. Harold Snedden, Dr. Frederick, and Dr. Hart. When the Paper Street Holdings purchased the property in 2022, the building, except for a couple small offices, was virtually empty. Nobody was renting there, had a big building with limited value, limited income. Paper Street came to you, and your body approved a conditional use permit for the residential use for an Airbnb for, I believe, for 4 units, 3 of which were constructed. When the Paper District decided to sell, it was a very attractive option for Recovery Institute because of the residential use that already existed. Recovery Institute secured an option to purchase the building in late 2024, and we started planning of what their plans were in December. In February 2025, Recovery, they closed on the purchase of 603 Columbus Avenue. Since the planning department, after the review in 2023 of the Pierce Street property, had not required any conditional use permit for that facility, we didn't think one would be required for Columbus Avenue. However, in discussions with the planning department on the Columbus Avenue facility, the local business zoning category did not encompass residential use without a conditional use permit. I thought we had one because the Paper Street Holdings had previously secured it. So an application was submitted for a conditional use, and we expect to be on the agenda for last month's May meeting. However, the planning department had several extensive requests on how the building was proposed, and we answered all those questions in a timely manner. However, a week before the May meeting, we were advised that our project would not be on the agenda because the planning department was not ready. We were extremely disappointed as this pushed our schedule back another month, and in the last couple of weeks, we've had no further requests for information from the planning department. We were advised that a neighbor was making allegations that work was being done on the buildings, and if so, that we were proceeding at our own risk. These allegations were totally false. We've had several contractors on site. We were reviewing work that would needed to be done. We also had the City of Sandusky building inspector on site, so he could tell us if there were any code issues that we needed to address. and we determined what additional work was going to need to be required besides what we were aware of to bring the facility up to building code. No work has been on the building to date. Last week, I received a copy of the Planning Commission's report, which you all have, and she's read. Again, I was shocked by the content. Never has any of the issues containing in the report that this facility was considered a public facility and wellness was ever discussed with myself or with Recovery Institute people. We were totally shocked that this was going to be one of the issues. To review, this facility is a step-down facility to the Pierce Street Center. The Pierce Street facility is defined by the Ohio Building Code as a residential facility. It is not defined as an institutional facility. Columbus Avenue is primarily an apartment facility for Recovery Institute clients who are gone during the day for rehab programming. Recovery will have an office presence with a conference room and toilet facilities in the building, which are allowed in the present zoning code. The only therapy at Columbus Avenue is normal living, eating, sleeping, recreation, and communication with the other clients. We will be providing a gathering room for indoor activities, TV and ping pong to start, for when the weather doesn't allow outside activities. I have a couple pictures here I want to share with you, and I'll get into them in a minute.
John, do you have much more?
Almost done.
Okay, good.
The Planning Commission brings up issues that you consider when it's a new building, not when it's an existing building with a new use. The Recovery Institute use of this building is not a public facility. It is not a hospital. It is not a health center. It is not a clinic, not a nursing home, not an institution for children or the aged. The Planning Department has provided no basis for the proposed use of being a public facility. This is going to be a residential apartment facility. Per the conditional use permit requirements of the neighboring residential multifamily district, the zoning code allows single-family, two-family apartments and row house dwellings. Taken directly from the zoning code, section 1101.01 definitions, a multifamily means a building consisting of 3 or more dwelling units with varying arrangements of entrances and party walls, including apartment houses, apartment hotels, and row houses. A row house means a multifamily dwelling comprising dwelling units attached in a row or a group, having party walls, and each unit having at least one separate outside entrance. And an apartment building means a multifamily dwelling comprising 3 or more dwelling units, apartments, arranged side by side or one above the other, and each unit having a separate entrance or entrances connected to a common outside entrance. With the approval of the conditional use, this facility meets the requirements for a residential facility. The units are all oriented towards the parking lot, not to Madison Street, not to Columbus Avenue. And now to the first pictures. The first picture is the back of the facility. It's this particular here. It's the apartments, their back doors. It's in the morning and the evening. The clients all sit here. They throw the football. They have cornhole. They sit around and talk. They can smoke. The second picture is the south property line. Shows a 6-foot-high fence this particular one was just recently installed by one of the neighbors. And behind that, on the balance of the south property line, there's an existing 6-foot-high property fence and 2 garages that cut off the area. The fourth picture this is what the west property line looks like. It's huge landscaping, probably 20 foot tall. You can't even see the neighbors on the other side. Last thing I want to bring up is that my wife and I personally own 3 properties in this block. One is our personal residence, one is a 2-family residence, and the third is another single-family house, which is adjacent to this property. I have talked to all my tenants. They were not aware that Recovery Institute apartments even existed. They have not heard any disturbing noises. They have not heard anything that they could even complain about. They thought the Airbnb was still there. We are not aware of any complaints. We're not aware that the police department's been called, or are there any issues? Noise, loud parties, or multitude of cars. So if you have any questions, be happy to answer them, but now or when we're done.
We'll have you return.
Thank you.
Anyone else in favor that wants to speak? Okay, anyone opposed to the proposal that would like to come up and speak, please state your name and your address for the record.
I guess they're asking the senior member of the neighborhood to go first. Not only age, but length of service other than Mr. Fike in the neighborhood.
Are you older than me, Carl?
I believe you're older, John. My name is Carl McGookie. I live at 615 Columbus Avenue. My house is 2 doors south of the property of 603. I've lived at 615 Columbus Avenue for 42 years. We are, as I said, 2 doors south and have several objections to the proposed use of the property, both based on the proposal as presented and also as observed with issues with limited operation has been ongoing since mid-March, apparently without appropriate approvals. They're using the Airbnb units. From observation, from time to time, there tend to be 5 to 10 people approximately there on a daily basis. Don't know what the breakdown is between staff and clients. I'll try to categorize my concerns along the same lines as staff did. As best I can. Not everything I have to say will fit in my mind, but you guys are the experts, not me. So under residential, that the proposed use is properly located in relation to any adopted land use or major thoroughfare plan, et cetera. Personally, I believe that the facility is best located elsewhere than on the busiest central corridor in the city of Sandusky. Most facilities of this type are located in a more suburban or rural setting to provide residents with adequate recreation and green space. This property has neither. As far as impact on pedestrians go, as has been noted, there are schools nearby. Children are walking to and from school on a daily basis. One thing that hasn't been mentioned, one of our neighbors brought to my attention, and I hadn't thought about it, but we're 2 blocks from the Sandusky Library. There's traffic up and down Columbus Avenue with students of all ages going to the library after school, and obviously during summer they have programming aimed at young children as well. That the proposed use, when located in a local residential street, is to generate a minimum of vehicular traffic through residential neighborhoods. From my observation, the traffic in and out of the property will increase. Right now, 1 van and sometimes other passenger vehicles are used to transport people, clients, and staff several times a day to and from meetings. That in and of itself is an increase in traffic from what had been there even with the Airbnb, because typically those people came in and out once a day. And same with the offices. They were not high traffic by any stretch. As I said, this currently serves a half dozen or so individuals that have been using this facility since mid-March. And if they have 20 to 25 residents plus staff as proposed, there will be more vans and vehicles in and out several times a day during the morning, afternoon, evening. I think they go in and out at least 3 times a day. That that the location, design, and operation will not discourage appropriate development or impair the value of the surrounding residential district. Neighborhood is currently mixed use, residential, commercial, bar, schools, churches, but as it stands right now, there are no high-density residential properties in the neighborhood, as is included in this proposal. It would change the complexion of the neighborhood. You're going to put, it's a slippery slope that once you change it, it's hard to go back. And if you allow 20 to 25 in this property, that opens the door for 20 to 25 in other properties throughout the neighborhood. And as has been noted, our neighborhood is being revitalized because of the revitalization that the city has done downtown. As I say, I've been there 40 years. I expected downtown to be revitalized within 10 to 15 years. I was only off by about 20. So, but we're thrilled with what's going on. And I think we can all attest, any of us who have been in the neighborhood. My wife and I get calls from young people that know the people in the neighborhood. Do you know any homes that are available? Because we'd love to live closer to downtown. 40 years ago, you couldn't give those houses away, okay? But again, it's historically mixed use, but it's mostly quiet for residential homes. From what I've seen, I can see with 20 to 25 people, this becoming almost like a college dorm. Okay. Property values will likely be negatively impacted if the proposal is approved. As I said, we've seen a resurgence in interest in home ownership in our neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods, along with all of downtown in recent years. This facility could make potential buyers hesitant to purchase property in our neighborhood. Since 2021, I've put $300,000 in upgrading my home. I certainly would have thought twice if I'd known that we were going to have a facility with 20 to 25 people on the corner. Going to the commercial and manufacturing districts, again, as I mentioned, I believe a more remote setting is appropriate for this type of facility. And the reason I say that is I've had family members go through programs, as Jason, was it? Or Jake mentioned. We all are touched by this. And I don't have an objection to the program. It's just what the impact is on our neighborhood. And so I'm very familiar with these type of programs. And most of the time when relatives were sent to these type of programs, they were in a rural setting or suburban Toledo, east side of Cleveland. Glen Bay is probably one that most people know, and that's not in the middle of a downtown district. So that's where I come up with that. The proposed use is not closer than appropriate to schools, churches, and other places of assembly. I think everybody's noted all of the places that are nearby that would be impacted, but the schools in particular and the library would be ones that, with children, that I'd be concerned about. Noise. Noise is my primary complaint. As I say, they've been there since at least mid-March, and I became aware they were there and operating because of noise. When first nice days of spring happened, you may not remember that we actually had some really nice days in March with all the bad weather we've had recently, but there were some very nice days, and there were clients, maybe staff along with them, outside enjoying, cooking out, being loud, having fun, because it was a nice day. That continued. We've had noise issues as early as 5:30 in the morning. A week or so ago, my wife had to yell out a window because there was a woman doing exercises on the cement in the parking lot, yelling to the residents that were sitting in the chairs outside. I don't know if it was a staff person or whatever, but I was awakened because I heard my wife yell, knock it off. And that woke me from my sleep at 5:30. We've heard conversations and yelling between units during the afternoon and evening hours when residents are back there between meetings. Sometimes loud conversations had gone past 10 o'clock at night, which we understand from talking to one of the staff people, that's the curfew during the week, 11 p.m. on the weekend. I may be wrong. But again, as I said, I could see it becoming more similar to a college dorm atmosphere. The only recreation activity we have noted is cornhole, or as I like to call it, torture by cornhole. They set up the cornhole boards on the concrete parking lot or the asphalt parking lot. The bean bags reverberating off the board, they carry to my house. I can sit on my back porch and count and hear the conversation. It's just that easy. I can't imagine what the noise would be with a basketball court, either by Drew and Abby's house or back by Carl and Amy's house on the back part of the property. I did discuss the noise issue, contrary to the comment that was made that you've had no complaints. Well, I did go over either on or before April 1st and spoke with an employee and mentioned these issues that I was having. And I asked, that's how I found out what the curfews were, that type of thing. To date, that's the only contact we've had with anybody from Rio. And that was initiated by me. They've not come and talked to me, bringing this type of operation. I thought that might have been something, would have been a good idea.
Mr. McGookie, I don't mean to interrupt.
Okay.
Are you close to
I'm almost done.
wrapping?
I only got 4 more pages. No, I'm just kidding. 4 more items, very quickly. I don't have them categorized. Neighbors accelerated the plans to put up the fence. As John Fike pointed out, that 6-foot fence went up recently. It had been planned, but not right now, but they felt it was necessary because of the noise and such. Again, Rio used the facilities before approval, so there's a credibility question that I have. The employee I spoke with mentioned that the long-term plan was to bring treatment facility from Pierce Street to this property. I don't see it in the application, but would want to know, would additional approvals be needed if they were going to bring that to there? Somebody mentioned that they are proud of the landscaping such. I will tell you that since around the 1st of May, whenever I walk to church on Sunday, I have to walk around the weeds that are growing out of the shrubs on Columbus Avenue. And I understand that there's some pretty good sized ones on Madison Street as well. So I'm sorry I took so long, but again, I have 42 years worth of experience. One other thing that was brought to my attention, Michael's house. I think many people know that that is a house that is a child advocacy center. It's secretive, but it is across the street from this unit. So,
Thank you.
that's my comments. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak against this proposal? And try to keep it brief.
Yes,
Sorry.
that's fine. I'll just say ditto to Carl's comments. Good evening, everyone. My name is Abby Bemis. My husband, Andrew Montana, and I and our 4 children live directly adjacent to the property at 613 Columbus. We've been city residents for 10 years. We've owned our home for 5. We also have been investing very steadily in the home, new roof, new windows, new landscaping, brand new fence that we were not planning to put up. This property values discussion, I can tell you assuredly, we would not have bought our house if this was adjacent to a 25-person multi-resident transient facility. And I fear very much so that we wouldn't have the ability to sell our home if we needed to. When we purchased it next to a quiet office building, as that's been discussed, there was a proposal a few years ago to move to vacation rentals. Honestly, we were fearful at that time what that meant for neighborhood and our experience. We did not contest that application. We knew the operators, also 3 units. We know where we live. Downtown Sandusky is a vibrant place. We expect some tourism and hospitality business. We don't want to be unreasonable about what to expect in a multi-use neighborhood. So we did not contest that. I would say our experience since March in terms of impact to our lives has changed pretty dramatically. We really did not have issues with the Airbnb experience. People are gone all day for vacation, and they come home and they sleep. The patterns of use at this facility are almost directly opposite to that in most of the neighborhood uses. People are congregating early in the morning, and they're congregating after 3 o'clock. And frankly, they aren't residents. They're taken out of their everyday environment. They don't have things to occupy their time. I don't blame them at all for wanting to pursue recreation, but it is very different than what you might experience from a typical neighbor, and it's every day. They're there for 2 to 6 weeks without much to do in the evenings aside from congregate, and our bedtime process starts at 7:30. Curfew's at 10 every night. It's right outside our children's window. There's conversations and things that we really don't want them exposed to and weren't expecting. So in general, I would just say that we have found this to be out of alignment with the neighborhood, the planned uses. As has been discussed, we have found the scale, even at 1/4 of the size, disruptive to us. And so, quite frankly, I think it's an alarming deviation from the neighborhood plans. I do understand the importance of the mission. I do understand the benefit to the business of a unified campus. I appreciate that there's been some considerations for safeguards for our experience in terms of who they accept into a program or not. My biggest concern is I don't think there's any administrative capacity to monitor that at a municipal level. And thus far, I think neighborhood integration has not been the priority of the business. And so we're putting a lot of faith into words on a paper with really no oversight. And the business has been operating out of compliance even after being notified multiple times. So we don't, unfortunately, put a lot of stock in that. End of the day, I think there's a better location for this necessary program, but for our perspective, not at 603 Columbus. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bemis. Anyone else that would like to speak against the proposal?
Hello, my name is Katie Karopkin. I am at 1302 West Monroe Street, but I also own a property 1 block south, venue 634 at 634 Columbus Avenue. I have guests that park on both sides of Columbus Avenue and on adjacent streets to get to my facility. So when it came to my attention, I did have some concerns. I agree with what everyone has said, that this is a very necessary company, to the process that they're doing, the clients that they're taking care of. I think it's all admirable. The location just seems to be a little bit questionable to me. I moved into a building that was already deemed to be commercial. I did change from small business to assembly when I started my business, but I made myself very available to my neighbors. I was there if anyone had questions. People knew how to get a hold of me. I was already very familiar with the neighborhood, and didn't start construction for actually years after I bought the building to make sure that what I was wanting to do would be a good fit for the neighborhood. And not having been reached out to, not having anyone kind of share current plans, future plans, or make us feel comfortable with what is happening has just been concerning. And as Abby mentioned, there have been things that have made us feel that the words that they say, the writing on the paper, may not be something that we can trust. And then in addition, if I may speak on behalf of my mom, Lori Karopkin owns a 5-unit residential building at 628 Columbus Avenue, which is right next to my venue. She has concerns as well. She could not be here today, but she has 5 tenants in her building. She's never had any complaints from any neighbors she had one complaint that the tenant was evicted. It was a situation that she thought was very important to keep the neighborhood quiet and agreeable. So this is not a project that she herself agrees with as well. But those are my comments, and thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak against this proposal? And you will be brief, right, Mr. Bodnar?
Yes. My name is Tom Bodnar, and I operate the Beckling Club at 614 Columbus Avenue. I also own a property about 2 blocks down the street, and I've been there for 40 years. I had an architectural office there, no longer doing that work. But I've had this building, the Beckling Club, which was the former Knights of Columbus, a historic building in town. And I guess I chose that for my retirement job. And I've been there, I've owned the building 11 years, did not move in till 3 years until I could get it in what I thought was presentable condition, because it was kind of run down at the time, sort of a white elephant. One question I would have for the owner-operator is how many, what's their client capacity throughout the state or the nation? They say they're a family-run operation and want to be open. A month ago, before their prior meeting, I went and visited them because I wanted more information, and I talked to their executive director. They said some of the questions I had would have to be answered by the owner. He'd have them call me. I'm still waiting. So I question how open they really are on this. That I don't know. Are they primarily serving Erie County residents, or are we serving people from other states? This is a local business area, not a general business area, and so there's a difference. I have some of the people that come to me. I operated an architectural business for 40 years, and we would bring people from out of town to our offices, and if they were from small areas, they said, "Is it safe to go into Sandusky?" I mean, it had that reputation for a lot of years, because if you read the Sandusky Register, you read about all the stuff that went on, and people are hesitant. Now, my clients there at the Beckling Club are primarily older, and I think they would have some concerns over this if they knew there's a drug and alcohol rehab center in the area. Because I don't have my own parking lot, so they have to park on the street adjacent, and so that's kind of of concern. I also, I guess, strongly disagree with John Fike that this is a multifamily zoning. My career was reading the codes, interpreting them. I was actually a student in planning. And, if it takes, if you live under supervision 24/7, that's institutional. That's not residential. And that's what they're talking about here. So I think, and the city's always been against spot zoning, and that's really what you're doing. If you put institutional use in here, that's spot zoning. And the city's always said, we don't want to do that. Those are my comments. And
Thank you,
I was
Mr.
brief.
Bond.
And, there are 2 historic buildings in town, or in the area. I've devoted 11 years of my life to doing that. And again, I don't think what's being proposed is going to increase anybody's property value.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments against this proposal? If not, we'll close the public hearing and come back to the table. Ms. Blair, did you have something that you wanted to say?
I just have a little bit more information for you before you start the discussion based on some comments I heard. So in reference to the Pierce Street facility, Mr. Fike mentioned the expansion of that facility. That was conducted in a site plan review on March 23rd, 2022. I took a look at the minutes of that and the staff report. It was characterized there that some patients may stay overnight as needed for treatment. In that site plan review, it was characterized as a medical office expansion. Staff interpreted that Pierce Street facility as a medical office expansion. It was approved by Planning Commission. The applicant was not in attendance at that meeting, so I just wanted you to have that information. And there was also mention of that there hadn't been any police calls. I did hear from our chief of police today that they had received a call that there were people living in the facility. He had known that we had sent a zoning violations letter. So they did get a letter on April 30th that they were operating in violation of the zoning and needed to not occupy the facility without the proper approvals. And it has been observed that that it has been occupied since then. And finally, they mentioned the weeds and landscaping. I was on site today. I walked my dogs around there. I've spent a lot of time on this case. And I did observe weeds that were coming out of the bushes at like 7-8 feet along the Madison Street facility, and grass that was about shin, almost knee height on Jackson Street.
Okay. Discussion.
Question.
Mr. McGorry.
Ms. Blair, when you talk about occupancy, you had first talked about Pierce Street. Were you referring to occupancy at this the location we're dealing with today?
I was. So the
Okay.
Pierce Street was about the site plan earlier that was mentioned. I wanted to clarify that. It's a different land use than what they're proposing here.
Okay, and
It's
is
been-
Pierce Street residential?
Pierce Street was interpreted as medical office by staff in 2022.
You know, that's in the city, correct?
That is in the city.
Is that being used as
That's
residential now?
my understanding is that's their primary treatment facility.
Okay, but not overnight residential?
I don't know.
Okay.
Through you, go ahead.
Mr. Miller?
Just a quick clarification, is that the old Firelands Corporate Health Building before they moved out to 250?
I don't know. The Pierce Street, I don't know.
I think it's a doctor's office up here, an older doctor's office, a previous doctor's office.
It's west of Hayes Avenue on Pierce Street.
Yeah, I think that's where Firelands Corporate Health used to be before they moved out to 250, if I'm, maybe John would know that.
Mr. Jackson?
I have a question for who's ever representing the positive side. I went by there today and I saw an individual sitting outside, and it looks like he was living there and he had a pit bull. So my question is, are there people living there right now, currently?
Mr. Heiser, yes. Could you come, or who is ever going to answer this?
There's no one there who has a dog. I mean, it could have been a staff member who brought the dog over because people have dogs, but yes, there are people residing there now.
Okay.
Can I expand?
Sure.
So when we took this over, when we got it from Ross, he had transient rental Airbnb, which is the same idea. Short-term rentals, like the same capacity of people living there short-term and leaving. So when we took it over, we waited for them to leave, and then we had clients move in. We weren't going rogue and then all of this, just like we're just operating. And then we got a letter that said we were in violation. We spoke to someone from the city, and they said we just had to send that letter. So we had the attorney send I don't know what he sent back, the rebuttal. And they said, all right, you'll be at the May 28th meeting, so it'll be within 30 days and we can figure it out then. So then when we spoke to her, because it got pushed back, she said, all right, let's just not do anything and wait until this meeting. So it wasn't like we just took over this building. We're like, we don't care what you say. We thought we were following all the rules. And then as far as the landscaping, when I was talking about the landscaping, I was talking about our houses on Perkins. We know that landscaping's awful because we know that John's gonna go in there and do all work. It's like, I'm not talking about right this second. Like, obviously, we need to do the build out and then freshen it up. So it wasn't like I was coming up here and saying, hey, this landscaping's great, and then obviously it's not. I know it's not.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions while Mr. Heiser's up here?
I do, through you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Castillo?
You've mentioned the properties in Perkins a couple times as comparable situation. So my question is, first, are these properties all located, are they consolidated in the same area? So are they 3 houses in a row? Or
Yes.
are they in different? Okay, and how many, I guess, residents or clients are occupying each of the properties?
When it was full, I think it was 16, 17?
16 altogether?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just trying to get a general idea of if it was comparable to a 20 to 25 person facility. My major concerns are that it isn't harmonious with the neighborhood. I think that based on the schools, the churches, things like that, that there is a better location for this type of facility in a more remote area. Per the code here, I notice it also says that the development should be necessary to serve the community needs and that existing facilities should be inadequate. So I wondered if you have the research, do we have that much of a need that we need to continue expanding? Because I also heard you mention the Pierce Street location, the properties that you already have. And I did speak to the Erie County Detox Center, and they tend to have about 4 to 6 beds open pretty consistently at any given time. So I wondered, do we have that need? Like, going back to the code, is that really needed in this community? And is there no other location that would be a better fit and more harmonious with the comprehensive plan as it sits and as we continue to try to develop the city?
Okay, that was a lot.
Sorry.
That was a lot of questions.
I've been waiting. I've been writing stuff down,
Okay.
trying.
So
Gather
the
all
first
my-
is we're not expanding. We want, those are old residential houses that are served it's time.
Not expanding, I mean your business, the business of having these detox centers for your clientele. These are all your companies, correct?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're
That's
not
right.
expanding. We want to get rid of those houses.
Oh, okay.
And then move to a newer place. So we've been looking all over for a newer place. When we found this property, that we met them, toured it, and we said, okay, this can be built out. And I said, what do you do now? And he said, we do transient rentals for Airbnbs. And I said, okay, then we should have no problem doing what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like it's the same.
So you're looking to move the 16 residents that stay at the Perkins properties into this facility or similar? I mean,
Yes.
So you want to get rid of those properties and bring it. So did you have to get a conditional use permit for those properties?
Yes,
Okay.
I think. Was it a zoning?
Conditional use, believe, yeah, through Perkins.
Perkins.
Can we confirm that at all? Do we know?
They got that
So-
information.
The reason why this was postponed is because I had a public records request into Perkins Township for the conditional use permit process for those other homes, because I was told that it was conditional use permit process, and I didn't get an answer from them until after the deadline for the May meeting. And they told me that they have no record of conditional use permits for those homes, but that the township administrator said that they don't have the authority to regulate it. That's what the planner told me. So it seems that they would have no issue operating in Perkins without any special permitting.
Okay, thank you. What is I guess I'm trying to figure out why, if you already have these properties established to take care of what it is that you're looking to do, because I agree, I think it's admirable, necessary, but I just disagree with the location based on all of these factors that we've all kind of repeated several times. And I also, I wouldn't want to hinder what you're all trying to do. So I'm trying to understand, taking advantage of what you have, is that not supporting the clientele that you have? Is there a need for expansion, I guess is what you need more space? Or if there's no treatment being offered at this facility, what will this facility offer that you can't, I guess, accomplish with the properties that are already operating in the same fashion?
The houses are just old.
So
So it's basically, they were houses built in, I don't know, the
So they do support your needs, you just want to.
Yeah, it's like, it's like older,
Okay.
and now once we have clients, you know, they don't like the houses, and then when we had this, when we saw these, we were like, all right, he did a really good job on these 3 units that he made. So he said, I was going to do the 3rd or the 4th, but I want to get rid of it. So I said, okay, we could take it over and do the 4th.
Does anybody else have any? Okay, I'll say before I continue.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I've got just 2 more questions.
Okay.
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, I looked at your layout here, and I see that you've got 2 stories right here, and then you've got the units on, what's the other street? On Madison Street. I can see that you could have total control of the units in the main unit, the 1st floor and the 2nd floor, but exactly how are you going to control the comings and goings of the units that are on, was it Madison? Madison Street.
How are we going to control the what?
Well, you're going to have people living there on the 1st and 2nd floor, but you're not going to have, how are you going to control the comings and goings of the individuals that are on Madison Street?
The individual units.
Yeah, the individual units you have over there.
I guess I'm not understanding the question. Like, how are we going to have control of the people in it?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, they abide by the rules. They're not like trying to get out. They're not trying to run away. It's like, hey, we pick you up at 8 o'clock, and if they don't want to come or they leave, then we have to discharge them. There's like a set of rules they have to follow. It's not like they're, you know what I mean? They're not trying to sneak away like it's class. They want to be there. So they know that.
I understand that, but
So if somebody snuck out at night?
The reason the people, your employees are there is to keep control of the situation that's going on there. That's why you have people, you've hired people.
Of course,
to be there,
yes. I'd rather be on the safe side.
Yes, to be there. And is this facility going to be co-ed?
Yes. Divided. Like, not like living together, but they would divide it up.
Is that it, Mr.
That's it.
Jackson?
That's
I
it
want
for
to
me.
get to
That's it
Mr.
for me.
Whalen and then Mr. McGorry.
So first
And
off,
then we're gonna wrap
thank
this
you for
up.
being here. I do think this is a need. My mom worked in recovery for 40 years and just retired, so she will be upset if I don't vote for this. But I do have some concerns, primarily the intensity. First thing, I'm only counting 16 bedrooms, but you're planning to get 22 to 25 plus staff, so you're doubling up and.
Most of the time, we double up in the bedrooms so that clients don't isolate and they're not by themselves. A lot of people who drink and do drugs, they've been isolating for years. It's not good to just put them in a bedroom where there's a lot of downtime by themselves, so that at least they have someone to
And
talk
I
to.
think that is the neighborhood concern. I myself, like, I know John lives in the neighborhood. I don't think that there's a safety concern with here, but as far as noise, it is correct that these people are on site from 3:30 till bedtime, right? Like, they're not really free to move around, so
They're
they're
taking the
going to
meetings at
be
night.
congregating in the only space that's there, which is the back lot, which is what all of these houses are backing onto. That, I guess my other concern, you don't even have to answer, because I don't think that it's really relevant to us. It's up to us to decide whether it's a good use for the space or not why, but what drew you to this location?
What drew us to?
Yeah, to this
So,
location, because if they could walk downtown, I could see it, but if they're gonna be inside all the time.
so what drew us was when we were looking for places, we couldn't find a lot of stuff. And then whenever we find buildings, I'm not John. I can't see a place and be like, all right, this is beautiful. We can make this out of this. I look at it and I see a room and I'm like, I have no idea. So when we found that and Ross had the 3 apartments already done, I said, this is beautiful. I said, what do you use this for? And he said, Airbnbs. And I said, okay, then this should be no problem. And it was beautiful and it was a good location.
I know the building, I can see it, I guess, that it would work, but I do think that it is a little different in an Airbnb in that Airbnb folks are generally out visiting, not all on site at the same time together.
So, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay,
Move ahead.
Mr. McGorry, and then Ms. Castile, and then I'm going to call for a vote.
You, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
McGorry.
Just referring to some of your previous comments about what the location you have right now in Perkins, you said that's next to Goofy Golf, so I'm presuming that's on Milan Road.
Yes.
And, which is kind of a different category of a neighborhood than here in town on Columbus Avenue. At least that's my perception. I'm not asking you to agree with that, but I just wanted to point out that you're talking about a Milan Road neighborhood, which is pretty commercial and a high-traffic area compared to this. I personally don't see this as a safety issue. I also personally see this as a need, and I applaud you for what you and your company are doing. I do see the neighbor's concern for annoyance value, for maybe how it might impact their property values. I also understand how you thought the conditional use that was approved for Airbnb use was similar to your intended usage, and I understand how you just thought we could move in and do what you intended to do. I also see a difference here in the operation from Airbnb and the congregation for the type of residential usage you're using. So I just wanted to make those observations out loud.
Thank you, Mr. McGorry. Ms. Castillo?
Just a quick question. I'll be brief. I know we're running the clock up here. I just was curious. I know we were talking about traffic patterns, and Aaron pointed out that we probably wouldn't see a huge increase in the traffic. But I was curious, are there visitors going to be on site? So no visitors will be allowed?
No.
And then are you all going to have, or plans to have, any outside services? So maybe someone coming in teaching yoga, or are there any plans for any indoor recreational uses? Or would it be just the basketball court potential outside? Because I hear a lot of the local residents complaining about the noise.
The big room in the front that was on the, that would be like a big, would be a big room that would have like a TV, foosball, ping pong.
Okay, yes, so that's what that would like to hang out.
Yeah.
Okay. No further.
Thank you. And Mr. Miller, you didn't have any comments?
I haven't had any, and when you said you were going to wrap it up.
Okay.
Because I certainly could make a comment, and I'd be glad to do that.
Well, I don't want to shortchange you, but after that, you get a comment, then I'm going to speak my piece, and then we're going to call for the vote.
Sorry.
My comment, echoing what I've heard everyone say so far, that the cause is a worthy cause, and it has to go someplace. But the most recent halfway house kind of application that we had here a few years ago, not far from here, closer to Cameo and kind of adjacent to Jackson Junior High, was resisted by neighbors and failed to get approval from this body. And I'm just saying that's the precedent that I'm familiar with. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying that's what happened and why.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Just a comment on the visitors. I thought I read in your literature that visitors can come, and if they're approved, they can pick up your clients and leave with them?
Yeah, if they're approved for the weekend, they can come, but they can't go inside.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Hines.
Thank you.
I'm going to make a comment, and then I'll call for the vote. When the Airbnb conditional use came to this body, I talked about preserving the integrity of that neighborhood. And I was the only one that voted no. And I voted no because I didn't think it was compatible, and I didn't think that, when I look at zoning, I look, what could happen with the next use? If you change this use, what can happen when they leave that building? What can happen down the road? And I think this is a perfect example. Now, if my memory's correct, I didn't look at the minutes, but I think, John, you were the only other person that objected to that Airbnb going in at that location.
That's correct.
And I cannot believe that this is a better use for that site than what you objected to back then. So that's, my reasons are clear. I voted no with the Airbnb, and I'll vote no this time around. So I'll call for a vote,
Motion.
for a motion, I'm sorry.
Second. Oh, we got to make the motion.
Yes, somebody's got to make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. McGorry?
To deny the application. I feel badly about the people making the application, and again, as has been discussed, it's a worthy purpose. I just don't think this is an appropriate location. And it's not, I'm not fearful of, for safety. It's annoyance and
Okay.
property values.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion, any further discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Rambo?
A yes.
Voice
is a-
vote?
A yes is to deny
Yes.
the way the motion is.
Connor Whalen,
Yes.
Jake Castile,
Yes.
Jim Jackson,
No, yes, yes.
Steve Pajali,
Yes.
Pete McGorry,
Yes.
David Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to the new business proposed text amendments.
Excuse me. I can use the restroom.
It's closer, but you can't
I guess we've got a restroom break here. Anybody else has to go?
I can work on that.
Adjourn for 2 minutes or something.
Can they-
Yeah, we'll stand adjourned until Ms. Castillo returns.
We will reach out to the applicant with their options.
We're still recording, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Appeals are.
we're still recording.
Just to keep control.
Yeah, if you sneak out and hit the bar.
Let me know if you want me to go ahead and present it, or if we're taking a pause.
Well, I would have you present, but we've lost our law director, although Ms. Murray is very, very competent. And I don't want you to have to repeat what you've already said with Ms. Castillo.
Absolutely.
Consistent in the 20 years.
I did receive a question about the previous application, what their next step were, and staff will reach out to them about any appeals process that they're legally, allowed to have based on the code, et cetera. The communications we would normally have with any applicant.
250 over there. And this, you couldn't even, there were so many people that came out against it. What are you gonna do if the people are against it?
The big thing, I mean. there's
Gentlemen,
nothing-
we are recording. We're still recording.
Okay, they've got nothing to do, and so they're gonna congregate, and it's just when a group of people congregates, they make noise.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to do minutes?
And like
You know,
I said,
when it's 10 below zero, they're not gonna stand outside.
No,
When it's
no.
below 65 to 75, they wanna be, they've been inside all day, get out, get some fresh air, but they can't leave, so they all congregate, and,
There's only so much TV you can watch.
yeah.
Can I have them sign minutes while we're waiting, since they already approved it? Okay.
And I'm not fearful of a safety issue. I see that as a problem.
I figured you would be coming
A
for this.
nuisance. I think you
Yeah.
said it well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. You made a good point.
I thought Abby was very articulate and explaining her reservations and, what her children will.
Ms. Blair, I'm guessing you looked back at the previous application for that one when they were doing VRBO.
Sunday's supposed to be nice.
What was,
I did
what
read
was
the
the
minutes.
design in the front up there? It wasn't a deal breaker for me, my vote one way or the other.
It was
but
vacant. They were planning.
They didn't have, they didn't have point, they
That
did
was
not
gonna be
have
different
those on
than,
there.
yeah.
And remember, they were supposed to come back.
Yeah, I thought I remembered they would have had to come back to get
Yeah, they
something
only got
else.
approved for 4. The whole
to 4,
conversation,
up
up
to
to
4.
4, they operated 3. The whole conversation was about tourism and proximity. I mean, it was a completely different conversation.
Well, but it was the three, and then they were going to add one more
It's still recorded.
comparable
All right,
to that.
all right, we will move on to the new business, the proposed text amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
You have a memo from me in front of you for this proposed very small amendment to Board of Zoning Appeals membership. And that is because lack of quorum leads to project delays. And we have suffered, the Board of Zoning Appeals has suffered from a lack of quorum for really good excusable absences by the board members. And we were asked by the commission to look into the ability to let that commission liaison be a voting member. So in Planning Commission, our commission liaison, who's Mr. Pajali, is a voting member. In the Board of Zoning and Appeals, it has not been historically. So we have drafted an amendment to allow the commission liaison to become a voting member for the duration of any meeting lacking a quorum where their participation would create a quorum. And that's consistent with a number of other Board of Zoning Appeals. The Law Department directed the language specifically. And I have that in the memo, it's in red, so it specifically says, if the board lacks a quorum, the president of the city commission or city commission member designated to serve as a board liaison shall become a voting member for the duration of the meeting. So we would like to ask today, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but we'd love to ask for someone to make a motion to recommend that City Commission adopt the proposed changes. They're in Chapter 1111, Board of Zoning Appeals, Section 1111.01, Organization and Procedure, to allow the City Commission President or City Commission member designated to serve as the board liaison to become a voting member for the duration of a meeting if there is a lack of quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Blair. I would just comment that this has been a problem for a while, and I'm pleased that you're bringing this, and the Law Department drafted this. There were times when the BZA had to send people home 2 meetings in a row because they couldn't get a quorum, and to me, that's just bad government. You know, people come out and take the time, and you've got to send them home because you don't have a quorum. That's not good. The only comment I would have or suggestion is, and that would be up to this group to maybe incorporate it, would be to add, if there are 3 unexcused absences, then you're off the BZA. And what I mean by unexcused is just, all you have to do is call in and say you're not going to come, and then that body can excuse you at the time of the meeting. But the fact that a lot of people don't even show up, I think this may help curb some of that. I don't know what your opinion would be, Mr. Hastings, but.
Well, as you're aware, the City Commission has a very similar rule.
Yep.
It's incorporated into our charter. And when a member is not there, someone makes a motion to excuse them. So did you mean that for to be 3 in a row or 3?
3 in a row,
Okay.
yes. Yes, 3 in a row.
Quick question.
Yes.
Is BZA 7 and a quorum 4?
BZA is 5 and a quorum of 3, and they have to have 3 votes to pass any application. Currently, Mr. Fikes sits as the chair, and he very often has to recuse himself because he's actively working on projects across the city. That was the most recent example. We got an application in February that couldn't be heard until May because there was consistently not enough members to get 3 voting people for that application. That was one of the worst ones that I've seen in the 4 years, but it's come up many times.
So when Mr. Fike, because I can see this continuing to happen, then when he cannot vote, does that take away the quorum?
It doesn't take
If
away the
there's
quorum, but BZA cases cannot pass without 3
So
votes.
should we word it so that there needs to be a minimum number of voters then, rather than an absence? So that if Mr. Fike is recusing himself.
That's an excellent point, and perhaps we should suggest a slight modification. Just make the commission liaison an alternative member, so if anybody's missing from.
Or unable to vote.
Then the commission member would be able to vote.
I wouldn't have a problem with that. I think I didn't realize this problem existed, but I'm glad that you guys are
So I
Doing something
so I
to address
understand.
Ms. Castillo.
Sorry. What you're saying is even if the member's present, if they have to recuse themselves for any reason, then that person can still step in to vote?
When needed
When
to
needed.
vote. I
But
think
that's
it's
what
all in
you're
the wording.
proposing to
Yes.
amend.
That's what I'm
to.
saying, is
Okay.
make sure that the commissioner can vote in all cases that would cause a delay.
Is that,
No, it just says when they're not a quorum.
And we wouldn't need to figure out that exact language at the table. If you recommended we take it to city commission, we could fix it before we take it to city
No,
commission.
quorum is different.
okay, is there a motion?
Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
I think this is an interesting wrinkle we're discussing. Before it came up, I wanted to clarify that there are two different people that could step in to make the quorum, either the president of the commission or the liaison. And it occurs to me suddenly that were there three people in attendance and one of them had to recuse themselves, then, okay, the liaison could handle it. But what if there was only two people in attendance and one of them had to recuse themselves? Could there be both the president and the liaison to be two votes, and a third vote then could pass a resolution?
My understanding of the way it's written is there's one presence, one member, one person present from city commission. So it's either the president or the person that they appoint.
But if they knew that they weren't going to have a quorum, that this meeting would be pointless for lack of a quorum or a potential conflict of interest, they could muster the president, because it's obviously a provision to have somebody besides the liaison vote in that situation.
That I would defer to the law department. I think,
The liaison, though, is the commission member.
yes, the
So-
liaison is serving at the pleasure of the
And they-
president.
One or the other
person,
could
one or
not
the
be
other.
both.
Yes.
It's not both.
That's my understanding.
And the other thing is, I mean, my understanding is there were times where they were looking for people, you say muster, there were times where they were looking for members in bars and stuff that they knew they frequented so they could try to get a quorum, and they still weren't able to find them.
I think we've made calls from this body to, we need one more person to a quorum. Mike, where are you?
Yeah, and I'm sure we never had to do that for you, Mr. Miller.
I can't remember, that may have happened, but it's been a long time and I don't remember everything.
Okay. Mr.
Mr.
McGuire.
Chairman, I mean, I'm wondering if somebody needs to think about expanding the BZA to 7 members rather than 5.
That might be a good suggestion, but just to get to this point, we've been kicking around for months and months and months. So I would like us to take some sort of action. I didn't mean to complicate this. If we approve the language as is, I can live with that, but I just thought this might
I would
take.
agree with Mr. Whelan, we can clarify that quorum language so that so that the liaison could become a fourth voting member.
That, you think that'll solve the problem?
I make no guarantees. I do know that we've had trouble with that board and some other boards, one, getting people to volunteer to be on the board, getting enough people to
Right.
volunteer with the right qualifications, such as the Landmarks Commission, and then finally with BCA, where it's been problematic for some reason this year to get
Right.
3 of the 5 members to show up.
And part of my motivation was if people don't want to be on the boards, then that would clear an opening for somebody that might want to show up.
Yeah, the process is cumbersome to kick somebody off of any
Yeah.
of the boards. This would give an automatic.
Okay.
I would make a motion to add that language.
The language suggested by the law department?
I thought you suggested it.
Oh, the
3 in a row?
3 unexcused absences in a row. We can retrofit this then?
Yeah, we can put that in.
Ms. Castillo, did you have a comment?
No, I'll second the
Okay,
motion.
it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, would you call the roll, Ms. Ramble?
David Miller,
Yes.
Steve Pajali,
Yes.
Jim Jackson,
Yes.
Jake Castile,
Yes.
Connor Whalen,
Yes.
Pete McGorry.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Rambo.
That would be, what I heard is that was a motion to add if you're absent, unexcused 3 in a row, you're removed from the board. So we would be looking for a motion to allow the city commission member to vote
Right.
with the changes made by the law department. So it wouldn't be the exact changes you're seeing, but we would make that change before taking.
I believe that was Ms. McGuire.
Is that your intention to vote for the whole, to
Yes,
motion the whole
yes,
thing? Was that your intention?
That was mine.
Excellent. Okay, then we're good to go. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I guess I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Usually at this time, I ask for updates, but because of the length of the meeting and Mr. Zuloff is not here, I won't do that. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, we stand adjourned.
Just want to publicly apologize for calling you by your first name. I'm just